I'm not a crazy person. Celery. Don't mind us, Winston. Hey everyone, I'm Adam Roberts, the Amateur Gourmet, and today we are going to be making an Italian soup called Ribollita. This is one of those things, this recipe, where it's not about a specific measurement. It's not like you need 3 cups onions, 4 cups carrots. It's what you have. So as you can see, I've got a ton of celery. I've got 4 carrots. I've got 1 onion here, but I have another one for backup. So it's all a ratio. The more vegetables you put in, the more broth you'll put in, the more soup you'll have, the more beans you'll put in.
Now don't get me going on beans.
So we're gonna start by chopping up the vegetables. One of the things that intimidated me the most when I started cooking was chopping an onion.
I'm scared.
So when chopping an onion, you want to keep the root end intact so it holds together. And then we're gonna go down like that. But then I'll cut a little bit of it off. So like that much off, but you see it's still together. And then I'm gonna cut this in half through the root. Curl your fingers in, hold your knife with your finger on the top of the blade, and then you slice down in a couple of spots like that. You notice I didn't go all the way through because that root end is holding it together. Then you go in like this. And finally, you put your fingers again, make a claw.
Watch and you'll learn something.
So this protects your fingers, and then you just go down. So carrots. I feel very strongly about carrots.
I never met a carrot I didn't like, except for this one.
Do not use carrots if they're not sweet. And by that I mean, buy your carrots, if you can, from a farmer's market, because I don't think there's another vegetable that tastes more different, to me at least, than a carrot does when you buy it from a farmer's market versus from the grocery store. All right, so I'm gonna taste this carrot. It's so good.
It's so good, it's so good, it's so good, it's so good, it's so good.
The other thing to keep in mind that we haven't talked about yet is that the more you cut something, the more surface area gets exposed and the more flavor that thing adds to whatever you're making. So the more you chop something, the more potent it becomes in whatever you're cooking. Okay, we're gonna do the celery next.
So one thing I find with celery is that if I don't use it pretty quickly, it gets pretty limp.
Yes, I was just thinking that this is some limp celery. I need some celery Viagra for sure.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
The best way to get any vegetable crisp again is to put it in cold water. All right, so we've got the base, and now I'm gonna add some garlic to that. All right, so to cut garlic, it's the same idea. You make a little curl in your fingers to the top of your knife and then go just down. All right, so now we're gonna do the cabbage and the kale. This is a Napa cabbage, which I really like because it has these kind of cool ridges and folds and wrinkles. I'm a huge cabbage fan. By the way, I'm cutting the core out, so you wanna do this when you're cutting your cabbage. So we got almost all this cabbage, and we're gonna just finish this one, and then we'll do the kale, and then we're ready to make the soup. And so this is Tuscan kale, and this is a Tuscan soup. And Tuscan kale is dark, and it's sometimes called Jacinto kale. And it has so many nutrients, and it's really good for you. So in a soup like this, we're getting carrots, onions, celery, cabbage, and kale.
Parsley, peppers, cabbages, and celery, asparagus, and watercress, and pinafores, and lettuce.
Plus beans.
Especially the beans.
So this is such a healthy soup. I'm very proud of myself. I mean, in terms of like a YouTube cooking show, like making a healthy soup might not make us go viral, but it's gonna make you live a good life. Winston, what are you doing? He's acting so crazy. Oh, Winston, stop stealing the show. This is my show.
Well, someone tell me, when is it my turn? Don't I get a dream for myself?
All right, so now we're going to chop the kale. Marco Canora is a chef in New York. He has an amazing restaurant there called Hearth. And his tip for this soup, which I learned from him, is to freeze your kale on a cookie sheet. Just put it in the freezer overnight, and then you can shatter it into like little confetti pieces, which is kind of cool. Okay, like we've done all the prep for this soup, and now it's just all about cooking it. Let's cook. Let's cook some soup. So, to make this soup, we're gonna use all the vegetables that we just chopped, some aromatics like Parmesan rind and bay leaves, which will go in, I bought store-bought chicken broth, but you know, as Ina Garten says, it's better to make your own.
I really prefer homemade.
Delicious.
But I didn't do that and it's totally fine. In fact, with this soup, if you're a vegetarian, just use water and it can be fine. Speaking of water, this is something I always do when I make soup. I get a tea kettle and I fill it with water and I put it on the back burner because you'll see once we add all the vegetables, and then we add the stock and things are going, the stock will reduce and there's a chance there won't be enough liquid in there for the soup. And you don't want to add cold water to a boiling soup, so you'll have a kettle full of hot water that you'll be able to add later. So my first rule of thumb when making a soup like this is to be very generous with the olive oil, because this is a healthy soup, relatively speaking, and you need some fat in there to give it some flavor and to give it some unctuousness. So we're gonna turn the heat on to high, and then we're gonna start sauteing the vegetables. You might be confused when you're cooking, like, when do I brown my vegetables? When do I soften my vegetables? And a good rule of thumb is if you're cooking something with like a deep caramelized flavor, a great example is like a ragu, you do want to brown your vegetables a little. But if you're making something like a soup where you just want a bright, light flavor, you just want to soften them. So I'm heating the olive oil, and we're gonna add all the vegetables now. And already, just looking at this shot, I can tell this is gonna be good. So when you add your vegetables, the immediate thing that you have to do is season your vegetables. So we're gonna add salt. I think if there's one tip that a home cook should learn early on, it's to season as you go. Every time you add something, you'll see that here, you will add a little salt and it keeps developing the flavor. Okay, let's add the cabbage and the kale. Now this is gonna seem like a lot, but it's all gonna cook down. You'll see in a couple of minutes, this will just be all at the bottom of the pan. So once again, what do we do when we add vegetables? We season generously, because this is how we add flavor. My mom is funny because she watches my cooking on my Instagram, and whenever I say like I'm trying to lose weight, she'll like monitor my olive oil use, and she'll be like, that's a lot of olive oil. I'll be like, it's olive oil, it's not butter. But I guess even olive oil, you have to draw the line somewhere. Okay, so look at this cabbage and kale. This is really cooked down. We got some really nice wilting going on. And now we're gonna add a little more olive oil, don't get mad, and we're gonna toast the tomato paste. So I've got tomato paste in a tube. I'm gonna add just a little bit. And when you put it in olive oil like that, what it does is it cooks it a little and gives it an even deeper, more caramelized flavor. And if you just stir it around in there like this, you get a nice, it should turn a little orange. And the other thing we're gonna add at this stage, this is totally up to you if you wanna do this, is we're gonna add some chili flakes. And you can add as much or as little as you like. I like a good sprinkling. So now we're gonna stir this all together. And it is time to add the beans. Look at that. I mean, that's just like a base for a soup. You can tell this is gonna be good. So I got cannellini beans. I drain them and rinse them to get all the schmutz off of them. That's a Jewish, Yiddish word for gunk. And now we're gonna stir the beans into that mixture to infuse them with some of this flavor. So we're adding the beans, stir, stir, stir. So at this stage, we're ready to turn what is now a big pot of sauteed vegetables into actual soup. And I'm gonna be very glad in a moment that I boiled that water, because as you'll see, I'm going to use boxed stock and we're going to pour it in. And chicken stock is great, but once again, you could just use water and it would be just as good. We're going to add some boiled water to cover the vegetables. If you like a very brothy soup, add more liquid. If you like a very substantive, like bulky, almost like a stew, like a vegetable stew, add less liquid. And you can monitor it as it goes. So the other thing I'm gonna add at this stage is such a powerful ingredient. If you've seen my Caesar salad video, watch it here, watch it here, watch it here. Watch it somewhere. You'll remember I told you to save your Parmesan rind, that it's like liquid gold. Well, this is the moment where we're gonna use it.
This is the moment.
We're gonna drop the Parmesan rind into the soup, and it is gonna add so much great flavor. We're also gonna add 2 bay leaves. Don't forget to take them out. I just added a lot more liquid because I realized that it was gonna cook down. So if you look now, you'll see this is a good amount of liquid to start with, and I'm gonna bring it to a boil and then lower it to a simmer. But the other thing I did was I also added a little bit of salt to the liquid. I forgot to tell you to do that, but season as you go. But the one thing I will say is don't over season the broth before it reduces, because as it reduces, it will get saltier. So while this cooks, I'm gonna go to my lemon tree and pick some lemons. All right, this is where my lemon tree is. Oh, look at that. That looks like textbook, like somebody should be painting this lemon.
White, a blank page, or canvas?
Okay, so this is a cool trick that I'll take some credit for. I thought it was so wasteful to get rid of all these celery leaves. Last time I made this, I decided to make a little topping. We're gonna do it with celery leaves and the lemons we just picked, a little garlic, olive oil, lemon juice, salt, and you'll see when the soup is done, what it does is it takes this soup, which is actually still going right here, which will have a very cooked flavor. It's gonna have a very deep, robust flavor. And then this on top gives it almost a bright, citrusy, like surprising pop. And again, don't throw out celery leaves. They're full of flavor. If you don't have a lot of leaves on your celery, you can still take this idea and do it with parsley or some other herb. You could even do it with mint or tarragon, but those are very bold flavors. So tarragon tastes like licorice, mint tastes like mint.
Makes sense.
Okay, garlic. So again, this is all ratios. So I'm looking at that. I'm gonna smash the garlic. How much garlic do I want in with this celery? There's not a right amount of celery leaves and there's not a right amount of garlic. It's just how much do you want to make today? How much do you want to put on your soup? So this is a technique that's called just chopping things together.
What?
What?
We're gonna slice the garlic to start. And then we're gonna mix it up with the celery leaves. All right, so we're gonna put that chopped celery leaf and garlic in this bowl. And we are now going to do my favorite little thing, which is we're gonna use, this is not a zester. I forget what this is called. It's like kind of a cocktail thing. I guess it is a zester. I don't know if it's a zester. A zester is the other thing. But whatever this is, we're gonna pull off strings of lemons. The lemon rind has tons of lemon flavor. And we're gonna use this rind just like this. But yeah, you have to admit this looks cool. I mean, look at that.
Okay, I admit it.
All right, so now I'm cutting this in half, and we're gonna juice that. And we'll juice another one into there. Okay, so we got that. And the final thing I'm gonna do, I'm going to add some flaky Malden salt. I just like the flaky salt for this because it's all about the texture. And it's gonna add a nice little crunchy, salty texture. Do a little bit more. And if we wanted to, we could add some red chili flakes here too, just for another little element of heat, if you like some heat. And then finally, we're going to stir in olive oil. And this is, again, this is all a ratio. This is the only way to tell if this is a good combo is to taste it. So let's taste. It's good. It's very bright. You know, I got a big bite of salt, that's why I made that face. One thing you don't want to forget to do, folks, is to take out the bay leaves. They work their magic. I just literally, oh, there it is. Okay, so it's like fishing. Pull out one bay leaf, and there's one more in there. Oh, look, and I forgot to take this out. See? I knew I forgot something. And the Parmesan, look how much flavor that gave up. Holy crap. All right, so I'm gonna show you a really great trick now that involves your freezer. The other day, I went to a store in Echo Park here in LA, and I bought a loaf of sourdough bread. And the very first thing I did was I made these thick slices, and I put it in this big freezer bag and stuck it in my freezer. I just put the frozen bread directly in the toaster, and it's gonna take 2 toasts to get it brown. You want it to look like that. Basically, you just want it to look dark and crispy and ready for some garlic, which we're gonna rub onto it right now. And so the secret here is sort of like making garlic bread the authentic Italian way. You rub it with a clove of garlic, and that raw garlic flavor gets scraped up by the toasted bread, and it's fantastic. And then the final step, and I learned this from Lydia Bastianich, is, I mean, not personally, just from watching her show, is to drizzle it with oil after you grill it. Because if you do it before, the oil cooks, and that's not the same as a good olive oil soaking into the bread. So now we're gonna plate. We are ready. We've gotten to the end.
Yes, I'm leaving.
And look at this beautiful Ribollita. Ooh, that looks delicious to me. I'm gonna put some more stuff in it. You gotta have a good ratio of stuff and liquid. Now we're going to garnish. I'm just gonna put some on top. Just gonna add a little puff. And the final piece of the puzzle, some cheese, which is echoing the flavor of the rind that was in there that helped make this soup. I mean, that looks amazing to me. For a vegetarian healthy dinner, I don't think it gets much better than this. All right, let's taste it. Mmm. That's so good. And even though it's like 90 degrees outside, this soup is light enough that it's great for a warm day, it's great for a cold day. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to see more of my cooking, give me a follow on Instagram or Twitter @AmateurGourmet. You can subscribe to my newsletter on Substack, and be sure to subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you here next time. Until then, chin chin.